Welcome to Europe, and we're going to talk about things you may have culture shock with if you move to Europe or come on vacation. We're going to kind of go from both angles on this, whether you're coming for a slow travel time or a long term or just a quick vacationer. So let's jump into our experiences of 3.5 years of running around many countries in Europe. What kind of weird things are we realizing as we're jumping around?
Well, I'll start off. It's summertime and there are no screens on windows.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a issue because another thing is most of Europe, much of Europe, you're not going to have air conditioning in a lot of the homes you're going to be living in or staying in unless you install it, or you're down in the southern part of Europe. So oftentimes you want to open the windows, let the breeze in. But then you also let the flies in and the mosquitoes. It's not as bad as like in Louisiana or something like that, but it still lets in the little irritants, and the little bloodsuckers may decide to get you at night when you're sleeping. You can hear them buzz through your ears. Fortunately, they don't eat as much here in Europe as they do like in Louisiana. In our home base in Montenegro, our first place we owned, we actually had screen installed that would pull down and up, but that was like the exception. You don't see the screens very often. Not to say they're not out there, but it's the exception. Something you need to be aware of when you're traveling is, of course, they've got different electric in Europe, and most of you are familiar that they've got the European 220 plug, but all countries are not the same. We ended up in Albania that had some different plugs that actually had the same type as Italy. And I'm going to show you a map of where these different plugs are supposed to be, but the actual ones from Italy were being used in Albania. So sometimes there's crossover in different countries. Normally in most places, especially hotels, you'll find an EU style adapter, but not all places. And the EU plugs, they, to me, are not superior to the American style, because you can literally put like 4 American plugs in the space that it takes for one EU type plug. And most places you live and go are going to have a plug shortage throughout your house, and so you end up having to get power strips to be able to plug them in. And these power strips are huge. Just to get like 4 or 5 plugs, it's like this long. Whereas in the US, I mean, you could just plug something in and you've got like 8 plugs sitting in to where there used to be like 2 plugs. Anyway, plug adapters, make sure you pack them.
Next, electric dryers.
Yes.
In the United States, I don't think I ever saw anyone that didn't have an electric dryer, but here they use a lot of drying racks, and we're going to put up a picture so you can see what we're talking about.
So welcome to the 1960s and 70s. But yeah, there's a lot of hanging your clothes out to dry. We actually, again, in our home in Montenegro, we've got a dryer separate than a washer. Some people are now putting a washing machine with a dryer system built in. Most of these are ventless, like our dryer is also ventless because they don't build into the homes the exhaust portal. So you pull out the water collection tray and dump it out.
And now, instant coffee. Let's talk instant coffee.
Okay, so when we were in America, I'm going to say we're more like coffee snobs, and the idea of instant coffee, not going to touch that stuff. However, in Europe, it's very common. Probably half the people at their homes, if they ask you if you want a coffee, are going to bring out an instant coffee. A lot of the restaurants you go to, they may not be doing the cappuccino machines and stuff. They might offer you a Nescafe packet or put the Nescafe in your coffee and bring that to you. So that might be your option. But a lot of people drink the instant coffee. And I'm going to tell you, it's not that bad. So I've learned to like a lot of different coffee methods. The drip coffee method is not common in many parts of Europe, so what we're used to doing with the drip coffee is not very common. In Germany, you can find it in a few other countries, but in other places, it's a novelty.
Yeah.
The Turkish coffee, I love it, and you can take a spoon of the good quality Turkish coffee, put it in your cup. If you don't have the proper Turkish coffee pot, you pour your water in there, let it seep and set for a couple minutes, and then you're good to go with that as well. Just got the little mud on the bottom. And then there's instant coffee that's called crema. And I made a mistake once. I thought this was cream for coffee, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have some of Julie's decaf instant coffee, make that, and I'm going to put this crema that somebody had stayed in our place had left behind from when somebody rented it. And we thought, hey, I'm going to try this coffee cream that they have. Well, crema is not that. It's just a different type of instant coffee, and
Espresso ground.
It is caffeinated. And then let's talk caffeine and coffee in Europe. I don't think a lot of Europeans appreciate and understand the good quality coffee pick-me-up that you can experience. If you ever watched our Ecuador videos, we did a tour about coffee, and Arabica beans are the lowest type of caffeinated coffee. So if you want to get a pick-me-up from your coffee, you've really got to look for something that doesn't say 100% Arabica in Europe. That's all about Arabica, Arabica, Arabica. I know even in the States, and I think a lot of people don't know the difference. So when you're looking for your coffee pick-me-up, you want something that's not 100% Arabica if you want to get that caffeine buzz, so you could talk as fast as I'm talking right now. The crema, I don't believe, is 100% Arabica, so it will give you a little bit more pick-me-up, but you have to look and analyze. Do you want your Arabica for that flavor or that dark roast, or do you want that caffeine, which sometimes I really appreciate?
Now, let's talk bedding. We have, I personally think it's amazing. It's Scandinavian style bedding. And a lot of times they'll put 2 twin beds together or 2 twin mattresses on one big bed. And then they have this bedding that Warren likes to refer to as pod bedding. It's 2 duvet covers that are separated. I personally like it, so he can't steal my bedding all night long.
To me, it's just a patchwork bedding system that it feels like when you first experience, it's like, what, they didn't have blankets and covers the right size, so you threw me a bunch of weird ass shaped stuff, and so to me it's not that comfortable. And they use these duvet things all the time, so when you're used to having a flat sheet between you and your blanket, so you have your fitted sheet, your flat sheet, and then your blanket. No, here you find out, okay, you got your sheet and then you have your duvet or your blanket there, and no sheet between. It's a little bit weird. I'm still not used to it. So in my home in Montenegro, when we're not traveling, we have a regular bed. But yeah, these pod beds, it's, if you want to cuddle up next to the person next to you, it's a little bit more difficult, and then seems like half your body's out. I don't know. Give me the good old-fashioned big sheet and a nice light blanket or something, and I'm much happier.
So let's talk toilets. Let's say you are out and about and you have to pee very badly. You better have a 50-cent euro coin, if not €1, sometimes 3 or 4 euros in the big cities like Paris. And not all of them, but pay toilets are a thing. And you have to pay to pee or anything else you need to do.
A lot of times somebody will be sitting there outside waiting for you to put money in their little collection plate. And
sometimes you actually have a turnstile that you actually have to pay, so there's no one to even convince that you're desperate.
And Turkey is still part of Europe, but you go to Turkey, you've got your card that you can use for the bus and for the train, but you can also go and use that to do the turnstile to go into the toilet in Istanbul.
And here we also have 2 buttons a lot of times for the toilets in our homes. And one is for your number 1, and 2, the second one, the bigger one, is for your number 2.
Conserving water, so you use a smaller flush for 1 and a bigger flush for 2.
And there's a bidet, which we've used those in our homes for decades. We're not new to it, but a lot of people are pretty caught off guard by them.
Yeah, and a lot of the bidets around Europe, you'll see a little hose sitting next to the toilet that you hold with your hand and reach around the back or at the front. I don't know.
One of the things that I miss the most is a garbage disposal. In the
They're
United
illegal.
States, I took them for granted.
Everybody has a garbage disposal, but you cannot get them from the local hardware stores here and put them in yourself. They are illegal. They're not allowed in Europe, and except for large restaurants might be able to do it, but it's not something you're going to have in your house. So it's a pipe dream. Don't even consider that you're going to have a garbage disposal in your house. You take your food and you scrape it into the garbage, whatever you have left.
Now let's talk about places closing down for siestas. While it's lovely and it's wonderful, in the winter we find it to be frustrating, because what happens? You have your colder morning and then a little bit warmer in the afternoon, and what happens? Everything is shut down. Restaurants, everything is shut down.
Very aggravating in Italy when you have the prime time to get out and explore and everything is closed. It's just intuitive. You just would think, okay, I'm going to get out in the middle of the day and get out from noon to 4 or 5, especially in the winter months when it's warm, and everything is closed. It's like they shut down like right when you're leaving your home, and they'll open up right when you're ready to go home.
And I think a lot of it is, in the summer when it's very, very hot, especially like Sicily, like we're speaking about, that is a good idea, closing down, because nobody wants to walk in 104-degree temperature. But when it comes to the winter, I kind of wish they wouldn't do it. In addition to that, a lot of places close on Sundays. We didn't know that in the beginning, and we didn't prepare for it. And we went to go pick up some chicken or something we needed to make dog food. And there was not one supermarket open in the whole entire country. And in the country of Montenegro in particular, it's a law. They aren't allowed to be open. They actually have a law. It must be shut.
So Google your country before you go. If you're showing up on a Sunday and think you're going to go hit the store when you hit the ground, no.
Now let's talk again about bathrooms, but this time in your house. Your switches are on the outside of the door. But not only that, they will also put a switch for the water heater, which you better switch that on right away. And they'll put a switch for the heated towel rack, great for the winter, and a switch for the light.
Yeah, so this is specifically for the bathrooms typically. So, and it's not all countries, but quite a few. And if you're not aware of this, you're going to walk in the bathroom, be looking for your light switch. And we've on more than one occasion had the water heater not turned on when we've arrived, not knowing, okay, we're supposed to flip the water heater on. And we've also done the opposite. We've accidentally turned the water heater off when we first came to Europe. And then we're wondering why we don't have hot water.
And now let's talk about customer service. And you're at a cafe, and you know what? They're not there to bother you. They're there to quickly serve you, and then they're on to other people. So what do you have to do when you're ready to pay for the bill? Maybe you don't want to sit there 2 to 3 hours. You have to chase them down.
Yeah, and don't be thinking that they're lazy. The problem is, or the good thing is, they don't want you feeling like you have to leave. And to them, when they come and want to offer you a bill, that's your invite to leave.
Yes. And one of the things that we've had to get a little more accustomed to as Americans, there are a lot of non-smoking areas. In Europe, get ready, almost everywhere is smoking allowed, except indoors. There are many, many countries.
Most countries, no smoking indoors. But when you're traveling like we do with our dogs, we want to sit outside, enjoy the fresh air, and it's always a little bit of a disappointment when a table full of smokers sits down next to you and decides they're going to light up. So that can be a little bit of an irritant.
Now let's talk about bakeries and sugary things and things that most people love. Bakeries are a big thing in Europe, and they're amazing. And the thing is that a lot of desserts have a lot less sugar in them. So
that's a big negative in my book.
I think they're amazing. But what's amazing is that you can go to these bakeries and get fresh bread, and it is so delectable.
So I'm going to talk about ibuprofen. So when I go back to the States, I will go to Walmart and I will buy a couple bottles of either 500 or 1,000 pills of ibuprofen, because if you want to get ibuprofen in Europe, you're going to go to a pharmacy. They're going to sell them like in 10 or 20 packs. It's a lot more expensive than what you're going to pay for
sometimes €4 for that little pack.
For what you can get for 500 in Walmart or 1,000 in Walmart. But they also, when you get to ask the pharmacist, you almost feel like you're a druggie. Like, hey, I need my ibuprofen fix. Come on, dude, hook me up. No. So ibuprofen, pack it in your bags, bring it with you. If you're coming long term, bring a long term supply. Check the expiration dates, of course.
But speaking about pharmacies, that's a great thing about Europe is that you can go to a pharmacy. Sometimes you can actually almost feel like you're being diagnosed there. You can be taken care of. It's a great thing. I mean, that is one of the real true loves of Europe for us. We can take care of ourselves.
They have a freedom in a lot of countries of being able to help diagnose you and help you out.
Yes.
And they're not doctors, but it's kind of like simple care stuff. They can take a look and give you some advice. And a lot of stuff that's a prescription in the US might be over the counter, or just basically you have to ask for it, don't need a prescription.
And if you are used to Pepto-Bismol,
I was just going to talk about that one.
Let me tell you, you're not going to get it in Europe, so you better pack it in your bags.
Yeah, a couple of the ingredients are actually illegal in Europe. That's in Pepto-Bismol. Don't ask me what the ingredients are, but you're not going to find it. There's like 2 countries have these ingredients outlawed, so basically the whole EU took it off the shelf.
Yep.
And then, public transportation is just a normal way of life here. We have our car, but oftentimes we're in cities and we're doing the buses, the trains, and we're walking everywhere, and that's such a positive. It's also good for the environment. It's also, if you're going to be driving like we are, I am very, very good at parallel parking, and I can go anywhere into any city, and I'll find a parking space for Abby, our car. But if you're not a good parallel parker, and you're going to drive in Europe, you need to learn before you get here, because most of the spots in any city, as you're driving around, are going to be parallel parking, unless you're going into a parking lot or parking garage. And then be prepared for smaller parking spaces as well. We were thinking about doing a Sprinter van initially when we were going to drive around Europe and do our travelings, but the size would have eliminated probably 90% of all parking available. So if you're going to be doing a van, be used to parking on the outskirts of town or being rural, but trying to find a place in the cities or inside of the good sized towns, it's going to be tough. If you're going into smaller towns and villages, probably not a problem. But if you're trying to get to a metro area that's of any decent size, oh man, having a van is going to be a tough thing to do.
Think of those narrow roads.
Oh, the small parking spaces. Parking garages off limits to you.
And then houses, we're talking small.
Yeah.
Houses here are smaller. We'll get places and where we used to have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square feet in the United States.
Yeah,
we're living in 667 square feet, in a lot of cases 60 square meters.
Yeah, we used to have some very large homes, and if it was under 2,000 square feet, which would be approximately 200 square meters, it was considered small. Our eyeballs have adjusted a lot over the last 3.5 years, and to us, 1,000 square feet seems like a pretty good size.
It's less to clean.
And our home in Montenegro, it has all the room we need basically, and it's less than 100 square meters, so less than 1,000 square feet. I think probably around 900 approximately square feet.
It's going to take you to Poland. And we're going to talk about what we found was something quite interesting. And they actually have inspections on these things. But there are holes at the bottom of your bathroom doors for ventilation.
And, I don't know if this is just some sort of leftover kooky thing that the communists used to do, but apparently some of these buildings, they want to make sure there's not some sort of gas buildup in your bathroom or something, so they have these ventilation holes. And I'm like, okay, this just seems like a job they're paying somebody to do that probably isn't really necessary. I haven't heard of anybody's house or building blowing up because of the toilet not being ventilated properly. But I could be wrong. Maybe we need to Google it. But if you see holes in the bottom of your bathroom door, it's a belief that some sort of gas could build up in your bathroom.
Yeah. Okay, but we want to know what you've experienced throughout the world in the comments.
Yeah, put your ideas down below. Don't forget, we have our Facebook group, Warren Julie Travel, and we also do a house swapping group we just started, so check that one out. And as a reminder, we're traveling the world with our 2 dogs, trying to see what it's like to live in different places. We're trying to share our experiences and expenses with you. We hope that you're going to subscribe, give this video a like, and until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Ciao.